My name is Shin Hong. I am one of evangelical Christians. We evangelical Christians believe that the gospel is the core of Christian teachings, so we work to spread the gospel in the world. Then my question is, what is the gospel? The gospel is from the translation of the ancient Greek word evangelion, which means good news. Evangelical, evangelism, and evangelis are from the same Greek word evangelion, referring to good news. Then, what does the Bible say? In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 4, Jesus proclaims the gospel. According to Jesus, gospel is something like this: good news to the poor, release the captives, recover your sight to the blind, and set free those who are oppressed. These are what the gospel looks like in the Bible. For Jesus, the gospel is not only a spiritual message, but also a concrete socio-political and economic proclamation under the Roman occupation. Jesus was interested in a very specific group of people, who are the poor, captives, sick, and oppressed. As an evangelical Christian, I think about the meaning of the gospel today. What is good news for those who suffer from racism, sexism, heterosexism, transphobia, homophobia, and all kinds of oppression? I believe that those are confessions are like today's gospel. Black Lives Matter, Stop Asian Hate, Refugees are welcome, Love is love, and My body, my choice. I'm an evangelical Christian, so I am spiritual and political. I'm evangelical Christian, so I am interested in spiritual salvation and political liberation.
People of God, the celebration of Jesus' entry on a donkey is antithetical. It's the opposite from Jesus' birth narrative that Ken read earlier in our service today. Our text describes new beginnings. Just a few previous chapters in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 19 through 23, is not an illustration of peace and quiet our American tradition often proclaims. Mary and Joseph had to leave Bethlehem and flee to Egypt because King Herod was trying to kill this infant named Jesus. Mary and Joseph had to stay in Egypt until King Herod was dead. Out of frustration of not catching baby Jesus, King Herod killed babies in and around Bethlehem 2 years old and under. An unconscionable genocide of innocence. King Herod being dead, but Mary and Joseph and Jesus weren't cleared from danger. This individual named Archelaus, Herod's son, took Herod's place of rule. Joseph wasn't comfortable going back to Bethlehem, so they migrated, keyword migrated, to a little town called Nazareth in Galilee. Due to this history, the term Jesus of Nazareth, quote unquote, was attributed to Jesus. This history also established a sect called the Nazarenes, a small messianic group from the first century. The Nazarenes were one of the first groups to follow the teachings of Jesus and were referred to as Christians, one of the first groups to be referred to as Christians in the ancient city of Antioch. You see, we sing the popular song, Silent Night, Holy Night, all is calm, all is bright, round young virgin, mother and child, holy infant, so tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. Such an amazing, heartwarming song, however, historically inaccurate. Mary's pregnancy demonstrated the opposite of silence. It was a chaotic time. All wasn't calm and all wasn't bright, as the song says. Due to King Herod's rule, Jesus, as an infant, was forced out of his town of Bethlehem. He and his parents were refugees fleeing from terror. Also, immigrants trying to find a welcoming place and space to live and to thrive. You see, people of God, in one experience, Jesus' very existence was condemned and berated as a child, not even born yet. While in the next experience, Jesus was celebrated and valued. You see, these diametrically opposed lived experiences of Jesus' humanity are indeed complex. Jesus, as a refugee and an immigrant, had, hence my sermon title today, the complexities of identity. Jesus' experience did not only represent the oppressed, but represent the complexities and challenges of the refugees, the migrants, the asylum seekers, the immigrant, and displaced persons, even in today's society.
God's Spirit blows hope where it will, and our participation in the Spirit does not tolerate any situation or setup in which some people are treated better than others. This gospel carries with it two directions, which are really just two sides of the same coin. For us as a church, the call to open our doors, to welcome all who would come and be with us. Because we know that Christ came for them as much as Christ came for us. God's Spirit rests upon them as much as upon us. We are humble enough to know there is always more light to break forth on our understanding of God's purpose for us. Hearing other people's stories and challenges, how God is at work in their lives, our own horizons can be expanded. In faith, let us respond to God's call to open the doors to people of all races, languages, and nationalities, all genders and sexual orientations, the full spectrum of physical, cognitive, and emotional capacities. In the summer of 2022, it bears mention that the doors open even wider for women who have had abortions and for their partners who have joined them in these critical decisions. God knows and accompanies your suffering. And then the application for us as Christians in the world, the social application of our Spirit-led orientation. Because if we go back to that hierarchy that was forming, despite the clear teachings of Christ, we can understand that the hierarchies in the spiritual realm replicate and reinforce the social hierarchies. Lots of churches today, this morning, you can go hear them. They'll tell you Christ was the most holy, next are the pastors, then are the men, then are the women. And let's not be surprised that churches like that see politics as an avenue to impose those values on everybody else. This morning, I invite us into an alternative vision for our role as Christians in public spaces. Let's be heralds of a civic Pentecost. Let's take the biblical lessons that we have learned from Jesus of openness and inclusivity and apply it to politics. We can draw on the experiences that we have had as communities of welcome to attest in the public realm the importance of diversity and mutuality. Our civic Pentecost is a recognition that God's Spirit is broader than our own congregations or denominations, broader even than just our Christian faith. We honor the conscience and participation of people from other faiths as well. On this day, in July 2022, the season of Pentecost, just a few weeks past Independence Day, I invite each of us here to be bold in our proclamation, to never hesitate to give an account for the hope that is within us, to open wide the church's doors and keep them open even when the gales of hate are blowing strong, to close the doors fast. Let's advocate publicly for values of welcome and dignity and participation, upholding rights of people of color, of women, of people with disabilities, affirming that America is a land of pluralism, and we are all the more edified when our Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Confucian sisters and brothers participate. God has created us in God's own image. Christ has taught us to honor God's image in everyone we meet. May it be so. Thanks be to God.